We continue with the next session. We have great speakers that Biljana announced, and the following session is divided into two separate topics panels. And I think that the way this session is structured is much in line with the thinking of Macedonia 2025. In a way that we at Macedonia 2025, we try to combine the strategic long-term perspective and the immediate current state in Macedonia and how we can improve things on short term, both as long term. Accordingly, the first panel will be speaking about the future of smart mobility, and it's a rather important topic for all of us. I think that people of Skopje fully realize that with the content of the pollution, and that something has to be done about it. And for the first topic, we have a great speaker, Mr. Michal Klocek, who came directly from Japan just to make sure he arrives on the summit. And he comes from Hitachi, where he has the role of head of business development for Central Eastern Europe and Poland. With Michal, we go way back, and I personally invited him to be here, and I'm very happy he accepted the invitation. So, Michal, enlighten us. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Metodija, and everyone for having me here. As Metodija said, it was a little bit of technical and logistics acrobacy to come over from Japan. So on Wednesday afternoon, I was still in Tokyo, so it was 4 flights to come over here, and this week only 42 hours in aircrafts and airports, and 2 more coming this week. So sorry for being a little bit dizzy. It's not hangover yet. It's only a little bit of a jet lag. But yeah. Yeah, and well, you guys from Macedonia2025, you promised that there will be a nice party at the end of the summit, which is tonight. So I have to come, and actually having a very nice sample last night and getting to know few of you, I have to say I don't regret it. It's actually very, very nice to be here. Thank you so much. I will speak about smart mobility, and there are a few topics I would like to mention today. So 3 topics. 2 questions. First, do we really need to own a car, or at least do we really need to own a second car? Let's try to find an answer later. Is it a real chance for zero emission in Central Eastern Europe? Let's try to find out later. And third topic is integrated transport system. Well, I don't know if you know this cartoon. Is actually my favorite one from my childhood time. Is it the Jetsons? And actually what you see here in the picture is a perfect concept of smart urban mobility. 3 major pillars. First of all, it's zero emission, because it's electric. It's zero noise, because it's electric. And thirdly, it's shared. So many people are using the same vehicle, which is basically a very efficient and nice for environment. The only problem with copying that to today's times, although it's like 20 few years past since I was watching this cartoon, is that it's still probably quite tough technically to fly on daily basis privately for affordable price, of course. So we have to be a little bit creative and think about something else. Of course, we can bring electric car, we can bring something that is no noise. The only problem is a lot of traffic jam that we have in most of the cities that are 300,000 plus people. And this is, of course, Skopje, for instance. So we have to think about multimodal transport. That the first building block to that might be, for instance, a car sharing scheme. So let me talk about it later on the next slides. 6 major city problems, not talking about transport only, but 6 major city problems we identify today are traffic, pollution, crime, cost of living, housing market, and noise. 3 of them are directly caused or related with transportation. So traffic, pollution, and noise, and partly also cost of living, because actually transportation in many cities is a very substantial part of the household budget. The first one, traffic. This is not only a problem as itself, but actually traffic jam is causing 4 more problems. Problems with parking. So if the city tells me that it has to invest a lot of money into new parking places, it means this is a very strategic decision, and probably it means the city will not have money for something else. So this is something it has to be considered. I'm not really good at aesthetics, etc. But some people say that also many parking lots in the very city center looks not very nice. Second, it's time. So we spend up to 50% time more in the car because of traffic jam. Third is money, cost of that. And fourth is tough to measure. Some people try to measure happiness or satisfaction. Just to say shortly, if you are stuck in a traffic jam, you may likely to be rather frustrated coming over to work, and the same if you are coming back home after 1.5 hours in a traffic jam, you may be rather upset. And if your husband or wife is coming a little bit upset home, it may cause more problems. And I'm speaking unfortunately from my experience, so we have to address that. The second is pollution. I just looked up 2 weeks ago, was starting preparing for this presentation. 2 cities from Macedonia are on the top of the ranking. Of course, you have different research houses, but it means, of course, bad. It's hopefully, and still luckily, not as bad as in China, but for instance, in Beijing, spending 1 day in the capital of China is equal to smoking 40 cigarettes. So although I'm not a heavy smoker, I would rather find more pleasant to have a smoke than spending a day and breathing with that air. Is it an electric car a solution? This is a very good question, and I don't have a direct answer to that. I'm a huge EV electric vehicle fan. I was driving an electric car on daily basis for a long time. This is first of all a very chicken egg question. So many cities in Central Eastern Europe that not adopted electric vehicle schemes yet are thinking, okay, what should come first? Electric car, critical mass, so number of vehicles available, or electric vehicle supply equipment, which are chargers. So of course you have to think about public chargers, quick chargers, and then you have to consider a standard of charging because there are many. Still the leading one is called CHAdeMO, the Japanese one. CHAdeMO is a shortcut for Japanese "Ochademo ikaga desu ka," which means how about to have a cup of tea, which would indicate that charging is as smooth, as pleasant, and as quick as having a cup of tea. And it is, because it's 20 minutes in a full charge. But you have to rather think about convincing people, encouraging via incentives to have their home chargers so that the public chargers are not that busy in a traffic jam, so that basically your capex or opex for the chargers in public places are not that huge. And now we have 1.2 million electric cars already on the roads, growing from last year on a pace of 70% year to year. 2 major problems related with electric cars. First is the cost of battery. Well, it decreased 4 times already since 2008, which is positive, and there is a very positive projection for next 5 years to be even 3 times cheaper. The other problem is the drive range, of course, and today cars have approximately 150 to 200 kilometers drive range. Most of the car makers declare at least 300 in the next 2 to 3 years. A topic that I just discussed with Mayor during a break is an electric bus. And I think for the cities with very heavy pollution, it's a very important problem. Also, there are 3 major benefits if we talk about electric buses. The third one might be quite interesting for you. The first is quite obvious. It's zero emission because it's electric. It's zero noise or little noise because it's electric. And the third one, electric buses are working very well in the places that there is a risk of natural disasters. So as you know, as I know, you experienced a few weeks ago an earthquake. So earthquake or flood very often can cause a break in electricity supply. So in that case, electric buses, the fleet of electric buses can serve very well as a backup power. So always there is some electricity still stored in a battery. So immediately, although transport is very important, but the first priority will be, for instance, to supply a backup power back to the grid or back to a strategic building like a hospital, for instance. China is having, for instance, already 170,000 buses, electric buses on the roads. Here is a special one. I feel emotional about this one. So I took this picture myself. In Maui, in Hawaiian Islands, when I was working 2013, 2014 on one of the smart grid and electric vehicle projects, actually one of the biggest in the world. It's my house, by the way, on the right side, so this is the emotions coming from. What was the problem? So on that example, I wanted to show you that actually electric car is not the final tool, because you may ask, what's the reason for having an electric car if the electricity is coming from fossil fuels, for instance? So electric car would go very well with renewable resources, energy. So in 2010, until 2010, Maui in Hawaii was using 100% diesel generators for producing electricity. It was crazy because you have perfect conditions for solar panel. Similarly to Macedonia, you have like 300 days of the sun, which is great. You have good opportunity for wind power as well. And they increased to 20% share of renewables in 2 years' time. Good achievements, you'd say yes, but the problem was that there was absolutely no control of renewables. So you may know very well, renewables are great, but there is very unstable source of energy, sometimes a lot of sun, a lot of wind, sometimes opposite, so you have to deal with that. So they had two very critical situations and invited us to take care of this project, and electric cars were a perfect solution. So we gave incentives to people to have an electric car. They got some financial support as well. The benefit for us, a bit of disadvantage for them, was that they had to declare at least 5 times a week when they want their car to be ready charged. It means you are coming home with electric car, let's say 6 p.m., you are putting into the system information that you want your car to be ready, let's say 6 a.m. in the morning next day. So it gives us 12 hours flexibility, so 12-hour room where we can charge this car. Let's say charging with home charger will be 2-3 hours. So we were waiting for peaks in power generation to charge with the shaving peak thing. From this year onwards, we have a bidirectional charger, so this is also working in a way that you can come home, you have some electricity stored, like 70% of the battery. You don't need that much for the next day because you drive like 5-10 kilometers to school or to work. What you can do is to declare every day differently, or there is no declaration as well, to say, all right, in case you guys in electricity company need some backup power, please don't wake me up, don't call me, just take from my battery in the car 20% of it, and then you have a balance at the end of the month on the electricity bill. So basically selling the electricity from the battery back to the grid. 4 benefits, so this is increased renewable energy, EV, electric vehicle working as a battery, portable, peak shaving, and valleys filling in terms of electricity generation. Today's situation with the transport, so I think most of the cities in Central Eastern Europe are having a problem with that because we are feeling a bit emotional about the car, so there is something like a second relative, so this is very important. Normally, this is the situations we drive a car and sometimes we use some public transport. The problem starts where there is little more problems like rain, snow, low temperature, you need to go to the doctor, though immediately you have much more cars on the roads and then the problem starts. I think when we analyze the city's problem, this is not very easy to have one immediate solution. I think you need to consider the very first building block that will start all the process. So I'm a huge fan also of sharing economy, so car sharing would be naturally a very good solution, but this is not the only solution. Cars are not a substitute to car sharing and vice versa. So in case of car sharing implementation, there is a fleet of, it can be electric, hybrid, gasoline, or a mix of those 3 cars in a car sharing fleet somewhere in the city. According to economists, after 2 years of car sharing implementation, the number of cars drops by 15 times in the city center. But people are not switching from a car to car sharing. People are switching from car to mix of car sharing, bikes, own cars, public transport, and still taxis. So very often there is a big objection from taxi corporation against car sharing that they will lose some of the customers. It's not true. Very often car sharing is serving instead of a second car, but still a mix of all other sectors. So what is my vision of the future really mobility? Just to summarize, I think it should look more or less like that. Again, my second favorite cartoon from a childhood, I still watch from time to time, to be honest. So 3 elements: 0 emission, 0 noise, and shared. Maybe in a bit more beautiful shape, but this is my vision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michal. Well, it's a great presentation, but I'm sure that I see the mayor is here as well, and everyone in the office, in the hall here, would like to hear. I mean, you've done projects globally, so my main question is: are there any success stories from the region that can be potentially implemented in Skopje? Because Hawaii is Hawaii, Oslo. Let's not look at those cities, because it's a different reality. But my interest is whether there is something that has already been implemented in the region and that can be potentially successfully transferred to Skopje.
Thanks for the question. I think this is very relevant, and the main difference you would see, and we have in Poland, it is the same in Czech Republic, you see similar in Macedonia, it's those countries in Western Europe have different purchasing power parity, so it is for them much easier to implement those, as you say, smart and green solutions. So as I was saying, I think you have to analyze, and this is crucial to analyze the very first building block. And I think electric bus is a very nice step, and I think Skopje is considering or even really planning that. This is a very first step into that. I think the first building block is crucial, asking about your question about other countries. A good example would be Czech Republic that took a serious lead on electric cars, believing that this is a future. Also Polish government, and there is approval already of the plan for electric mobility and car sharing with a big dialogue next Friday that we attend, but basically approved. And I think those countries that we are also working with are thinking of what is the very first step that is affordable. So for instance, if you consider an investment into parking, you can think what can be done for smart future within this budget and do it instead of that.
Thank you. I think now that we can have a few questions before we proceed to the other topic. So I would like to ask the audience, are there any questions?
Just to check, I have read that in Germany there is some kind of law or something that by 2030 they will not produce anymore the cars with internal combustion. So no diesel, no benzene, just electric cars. Do you know about this information? And if it is true, that means it's just around the angle that this time will come for us as well.
Thank you for this. I've heard of it. I don't think this is approved plan. I don't have any information that is approved. On the other hand, what other cities, for instance, Amsterdam is thinking and approving is that, for instance, after 2030 or 2025, there will be no entrance to the city of combustion engine cars. But about production, I don't have such information.
One good example for green cars is Ljubljana, the green capital for 2016. Small buses and small buses and cars are driving in the center, called Cavalieri.
I have a question with regard to car industry in general. So, for instance, in Germany, it's big businesses, you can imagine. I just wonder how they're going to react to these, or how they are already reacting to these ideas, because they could result in significantly lower numbers of sold cars.
Could you repeat, please?
I wonder how car industry is responding to these concepts, because the way I see it, I mean, these concepts, let's say implementation of these concepts could result in significantly lower number of sold cars.
For car sharing systems or electric?
Well, car sharing in particular. So electric, that's a bit unclear, but car sharing definitely.
Of course, this is a little bit of risk. I'm not coming from the car maker industry. This is more of our partner in different projects. I think this is a risk for, of course, the car industry. Nevertheless, some of the companies are not waiting until something will happen or not happen. They basically take a lead to be one of the leaders and an important part of that. So this is an example would be Daimler having, apart from Mercedes, brand Smart that is specifically designed for car-to-go scheme. You have BMW that took a very serious lead implementing Drive Now. So they took actually not only a lead to provide cars to some company that is operating the car sharing, but they actually created their very own car sharing business which is, I think, a very interesting model. The same are other cars like Nissan, Mitsubishi, or Fiat, for instance. But clearly, the numbers are as you said, this will decrease. The economists say that one car-sharing car would serve well instead of 15 cars in the city.
Okay, so would it be fair to say then that car industry, or let's say big players, have actually embraced this concept instead of opposing it?
I think they just accepted it. This is basically part of the same as electric cars. So of course there is a risk for different energy companies, etc. But Czech Republic, for instance, with the major company ČEZ, didn't wait until something will happen or not happen. They just said, okay, we find there is basically new business model, and they started investing into this very particular scheme. So I think as the world is changing, also transport system is changing very much, and those big players has to find way to find themselves in a new conditions, and this is what's changing with PCs, changing from desktop to laptops, from laptops to iPads, and I think this is how they have to react to what people need actually, and the city's needs. Yeah?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have one last question because we have to move on with the other topic. We have the former vice mayor of Genova. I think he will pose some relevant question, and then we move on. Michal will be here, so you can question him over lunch. And then
I will be also tonight, so
yes,
yeah.
Tonight, yeah.
Yes, good morning, Francesco Done, now Smart City Advisory. I have a question. There are some cities like Tallinn that has gone completely free on public transportation. It doesn't cost a penny for citizens of the city to use public transportation. Now, I want to know if you have studied that measure, what impact it does have on traffic flows, and how, well, in that case, also on the finances, whether this is sustainable. But most of all, if it has significantly reduced the number of private cars getting into the city center. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. So indeed, we did analyze. This is not a very easy thing. So I think for many countries, I mean many cities in Central Eastern Europe, the problem is in case even if you have a budget and you fully move the budget to subsidize 100% public transport, the problem in cities that we are working with is that the public transport is not sufficiently built yet. So basically the cities cannot digest that amount of people if they switch immediately. So I think there's a really case-by-case basis. Of course, you have cities in Asia, for instance, or in North America that can digest such situation. I think in our case, I don't think so. So imagine the situation that in Skopje, tomorrow 500 people will stop driving and they will go to buses. Long term, I would love to see that, but I don't think this is what I would advise for the city as Skopje or Warsaw at this very moment.